And we're back. Screen Heat Miami after a hiatus. We are back in the saddle in this all new audio visual format. I'm JL Martinez with my co host,
Kevin Sharpley,
and this is the one, the only Screen Heat Miami.
Screen Heat. We are back. There's been a lot of heat. It's
A lot
something we've
going
been
on.
talking about since January. It wasn't COVID when we started talking about it, it was just coronavirus. It started in China. So, one of the first things that we talked about was the hit that they were saying $7
Mm,
billion. That was in early January. I always thought that that was a pretty big number to start
mm.
off with, but maybe they knew that it was going to be a bigger hit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they had a premonition. Obviously, they knew what was going on before we did back in November and December. There was already, I guess that's when it started at the epicenter. And slowly but surely, it just kind of went out of the borders into places like Italy and parts of Europe, and then eventually, obviously, made its way over to the US around February, March, and which is what caused the big shutdowns here across the industry, across every industry, essentially, not just the entertainment industry. And we're all just kind of went into a bunker for a while. Everybody's been trying to stay home, try to stay safe. Fortunately, the internet still works, and Netflix is still streaming, and things
Yeah,
are
well,
still
Netflix is
right.
streaming. They're streaming big to a 40% profit.
Oh yeah, yeah, they are. They are, and we wanted to talk about that a little bit in terms of what the big streamers are going to be. I wanted to mention our guest today, which we're going to get into. Shane Perez is someone that we interviewed back in February. This was around the time of Kidscreen,
Yeah,
and
before everything went down. That's right.
yeah. We started to feel there was kind of something shifting under our feet. We weren't quite sure what it was, but we still thought we were relatively safe in Miami. And so, yeah, we had a great interview with Shane Perez, who's an amazingly talented TV writer, writes a lot of kids' animations, worked with Disney and a bunch of other folks. He's from New York, has family in Miami, was based in Ireland, and now he's living in Portugal. So, a very interesting journey for Shane.
Yeah, he's Irish Puerto Rican.
Yes, sir. Irish Puerto Rican. So there was a lot in that soup mix.
Yeah, yeah,
We're excited to
yeah.
get into that. Of course, we can't thank enough our sponsors, starting with Kajik Multimedia,
Cinevision
the Miami Media and Film Market.
and Chemical.
Yes, sir. But yeah, getting right into it, the industry did experience a seismic shift. Some companies are doing better than others. We just talked about Netflix becoming essentially one of the top blue chip companies in America, right?
Yeah, I mean they're more highly valuated than IBM.
Mm-hmm.
ExxonMobil, I mean, of
Yeah.
course, there is the situation with oil in general, but I mean, who would have thought that even a couple of months ago? I mean,
Yeah.
that's something. That's
Yeah.
telling. The
Yeah.
power of media.
Oh yeah, yeah. Between the dramatic drop in oil prices, the sudden closure of major theme parks, which has hit Disney extraordinarily hard, as well as the loss of their theatrical revenue. Remember in the fall we were talking about them having, what was it, like a $12 billion year at the box office?
Their biggest
Uh,
year.
yeah, their
Hmm.
biggest year on record, blowing all other studios out of the water, literally. Finally closing that huge deal to absorb the Fox Studio entities. It almost seemed like nothing could go wrong with Disney, right?
Yeah, and they started Disney Plus the minute they opened 10 million subscribers. But we
Hmm.
did talk about how, Disney Plus, they could kind of coast with it because they had so many other revenue streams,
Oh
you
yeah,
know? And that goes from, their movies to, of course, the theme parks, even cruise ships because they have Disney cruises.
right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
what has been traditionally, their skeletal lifeline, which is, their live entities, their theme parks, and the cruise ships which have been tremendously profitable for them,
hmm.
during this situation have become, an anchor.
Oh yeah, no,
So
absolutely, yeah. And so for them, obviously the losses were devastating. Obviously for us being from Florida, we have their largest theme park in our backyard, and tremendous losses there. I feel so terrible, obviously, for the 40,000 employees at the Disney theme parks that were furloughed about a week ago. And so, everyone there is, obviously we're praying for the best for them to be able to get back to work when it's safe. But yeah, hugely tremendous economic impact on the Walt Disney Company, to the point that, yeah, Netflix has surpassed Disney as well in terms of market value. And so that's something we didn't foresee happening. The one silver lining, of course, for Disney is that Disney Plus, I think now has grown to over 50 million subscribers, something I think they weren't expecting to hit maybe for a year or two.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in this age of COVID, it's all about the pivot, and
Hmm.
how you're going to be able to, maneuver these troubled waters and utilize what's happening with this situation towards, the new business, the
Right,
new. I think
right,
that that's ultimately what it's going to be. They're starting to open up a few things around the world, but even here in this country. But I just don't think it's ever going to be the same. And when you think about things like theme parks, how are you going to maintain even once the parks get open again? This whole thing about social distancing.
right.
You know, I just don't until there's even when they make the actual um
Vaccine.
solution, the
Right.
vaccine for this thing. I just am not sure exactly how things are going to work you know
Right. Yeah, no, we're not. And this has obviously affected so many parts of the industry, not only obviously the live entertainment divisions, the theatrical divisions, but everything from film festivals to film markets. We had our 10th anniversary of the Miami Media and Film Market coming up in June. It was going to be a big splashy event at the Biltmore that we were all working towards and very excited about, which has been postponed, obviously for the reasons we just mentioned. And then also other festivals. I mean, the Miami Film Festival, we were there every day and it just got
right in
shut
the
down,
middle.
right
Yeah.
smack dab in the middle.
Right in the middle.
We were very fortunate to have the Marcus premiere, the opening weekend, and so that did happen. But some of our other friends and colleagues, like Kareem Tapston, he had the Miami premiere of his great documentary Mucho Mucho Amor, which didn't happen. South by Southwest didn't happen, and it was just kind of a domino effect, right, starting in mid March.
Yeah, and I remember you and we walked into the happy hour,
Mm,
and it was just you, I, and Jay LaPlante, the executive director of the Miami Film Festival. And you kind of looked at his face, and it just looked a little bit somber. And
right.
I've not seen Jay really in that way before.
Mm.
And you know, maybe the feeling of what was coming was weighted in that.
Yeah, yeah. The festival,
Because
it's
the
usually
very next day is
they shut
when
it
they
down,
kind of
right?
pulled the plug. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he was getting obviously communications back and forth between Miami-Dade College, which hosts the festival, which is obviously, for those that don't know, probably the largest college in the U.S.
Yeah,
In
it is,
terms of
yeah.
student population and number of campuses. So, they have to be very reticent about their student body and everything that's going on, not only at the local level, at the state level as well. And so I'm sure there were communications going on between, state government and local government, which finally felt like the safest thing was to shut it down after about 4 or 5 days, about halfway through the festival. And yeah, it was just, again, felt terrible for our colleagues and friends and filmmakers who had traveled halfway around the world to see their movies premiere and wasn't able to happen. And then the whole, like you said, pivot was just trying to get all these filmmakers home safely.
Yeah.
And so that was a tremendous undertaking, which Jay and his staff did a really great job in kind of turning that around very quickly and, just dealing with the situation at hand. And, so now that we're past that, it seems like the other pivot has been, can we still have a virtual festival or a digital conference? The Marché du Film is going to be launching one of the first major film markets in June, about a month delayed, and it'll be a virtual market where you can basically sign up and have private one-on-one meetings with distributors, and it's going to be an interesting experiment for them and how they're going to be able to pull this off.
Yeah, and there's a huge inter-festival event coming up. That involves, Sundance, Tribeca, some of the biggest festivals in
Hmm.
the country and some of the biggest in the world. And they're going to do, some screenings of some of their favorite films. They've all curated films. And
Hmm.
so, I think that this has become a collaborative and cohesive effort towards the next steps, and how to figure all of this out. But even thinking about the bigger frame,
Right.
production has stopped.
Mm.
And, talks are production won't start again until August, September.
Mm.
You're looking at Tyler Perry. He's already hatched a plan,
Right.
in the next 3 weeks
Wow.
to, yeah, yeah, yeah. His plan is because, they took over that military base.
Mm.
So with the military base, they already had some housing. They're building more housing, and they're really creating a situation where it's going to be an inclusive environment. And
Wow.
so they're going to bring in their crew and the people that are working on whatever given production. They're going to get tested every day. There'll be incubation periods, and they're going to be set up in different housing in
Wow.
order to continue production. And he can do that. I mean, not many big studios can do that. Not many major studios can do that. So his plan is, you know, in 3 weeks or so.
Wow. Well, good for Tyler, and he's always been very sort of entrepreneurial and the type of Hollywood guy that thinks outside the Hollywood box.
Yeah,
Credit to him. He's done that his entire career and it's worked for him brilliantly, that he's able to do that. But I think that what's also good about Tyler Perry projects, as opposed to producing, say, the next Avengers or whatever, is that, if you can keep your productions at a smaller scale, right? And
yeah,
have, get away with less crew, less cast, less extras, less everything, essentially, which is something that Tyler's also very good at. I think those are the Hollywood productions that are going to be able to ramp up a lot sooner than the major tent poles. And so we may see more content at a smaller scale, slowly building up over the next couple of years until we start to see the major tent poles go back into production.
yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that after the jump. And
Mm.
also, what I've been talking about is animation. And this is apropos to have Shane as our guest for this one because animation, I think, is going to have a huge surgence. My company, we have really moved towards, pushing the button on a lot more of our animation. And before all this, went down, we were headed to LA for one of the biggest festivals, the Slam Dance Emergence Festival in LA, on one of our animated projects. We got selected for that. Even since then, we won at the Amsterdam Film Festival, Best Animated Project, Best Musical Composition, and Best Crime Drama. So,
Mm.
one of our animated projects is still moving and doing things, but when you have something that you feel has been a nice bullet for you, in this day and age, and I'm sure that you feel this as well because you have Marcus, for it to kind of, you know, become cocked back into the chamber, it makes it a little bit more challenging figuring out, what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and for us,
Yeah.
animation, I think is going to be, the next step, the next biggest step, and that's what we've been working towards. But we'll talk a little bit more after the jump. um we're really excited that we have Shane coming up
Yeah.
because he's
Yeah.
gonna really let us know about a lot of that behind the scenes work in animation.
No, the great, and you're right, totally apropos. So let's take a little break. We're going to listen to this great interview with Shane Perez, and we'll be back after the jump. And we're back. That
Yes,
was awesome.
Shane gave it. The timing is perfect.
Mm. Talk about a guy who has
Shane,
pivoted throughout his career, right?
yeah, yeah, certainly. And, I'm sure he's going to be able to navigate these waters, definitely, because there's going to be, even more demand for animation. And I'm seeing more and more, animated projects. there's and I believe it's Fox. There's an animated newscast now
Hmm.
that's come on board. Sci-Fi has added an animation block, an evening animation block. So you're going to see more and more of this, especially um, since production, we know, pretty certain that at least until June, it's not going to start up again. But then you
Hmm.
have, July, August. If it really is September, that glut of, production,
Hmm.
people are consuming this content voraciously.
Yeah.
I mean, Netflix, Hulu, whatever they can, because, you're quarantined. What are you going to do?
Yeah. No, you're totally right. Yeah, you're right. There is going to be a voracious need and an appetite for new content. So now this is almost a perfect storm where you have folks that are consuming content quicker than they ever have before. There's a halt in production and new content coming out. So when things ramp up, it's going to be put on overload, but yet you can't ramp up as quickly as you like because there's going to be all these new safety measures put in place.
Yeah,
So productions are just going to take longer, because they're talking everything from not only keeping social distancing, smaller crews, but the work hours are going to be reduced apparently. So they don't want folks working these 12, 14, 15-hour days anymore. We're
right.
talking, 5 days a week, 8 to 10 hours. Like you said, this idea that Tyler had about keeping everybody in like hotel rooms or dorm rooms on a sort of film campus.
Yeah.
And that's all going to slow down production.
Yeah, and also, they're going to do testing coming in. So that's going to be at least, an hour, figuring that out, maybe
Mm,
2 hours figuring that out. So, and you
yeah.
think once you get the unions involved and, protocols, it really is going to be, a whole nother ball game. I mean, what we talked about, and this is just going back to Disney, Disney CEO, I think he was really feeling himself. He was going to do a victory lap.
Yeah, yeah. I made the comment the other day. He's like Godfather 3. Every time he gets out, they pull him back in.
Yeah,
That
who was that? What
was Al
actor was that?
Pacino. That was
Al
every
Pacino.
time I try to get out, they pull me back in. That's
That's right. That's right. Yeah, because he was moving to become a board member.
Yeah, he became chairman, de facto position. They had named another Bob Chapek, who was actually, ironically, running all the Disney theme parks.
The theme parks, that's right. They're
Had
cash
become
cow.
had become the CEO, and he was sort of
Right.
on the top of the heap. And now all of a sudden, everything just came down all at once. And I think that I like to say it was the return of the Jedi for Bob Iger. He just had to.
That's right. For our listeners, right behind me, I have one of my favorite posters. It's from Rogue One. Rogue One is
Nice.
my favorite from this new iteration of Star
Yeah,
Wars.
yeah.
Yeah, and I guess he's going to be the Return of the Jedi Rogue One warrior.
Oh
To
yeah.
bring it all back. If anyone else can, he's the one that could.
Oh,
So
for sure. Yeah, Bob's always had, a lot of people praise him because he's always been very kind of even keeled and very tempered. I think his predecessor, Michael Eisner, was a little more, a little more excitable. But yeah, I think that definitely the right guy for this time. And I know that for a few years he was looking for ways to kind of wind down. And I think the Fox deal was supposed to be a sort of last hurrah, major accomplishment. But it seems like now, he is literally trying to save the life of the company.
yeah,
So
and like I
yeah.
said, if anyone else can do it, he's the one that can do it. So we're looking at some of the other companies that kind of launched during this time. Quibi.
Mm. Oh yeah.
Have have you had a chance to download that and take a look at it?
I have not yet, and I should, because I get a lot of sponsored ads on Instagram for it. So I
Hmm.
should definitely download it and check out some of their content. But they've had an interesting launch. You would think this maybe would have benefited them, coming during
Yeah.
this time where everybody's binging, but they seem to have had, this has made the trades a lot of issues with some of their executives and staff, folks kind of jumping off of the Quibi project. So we'll see. I think that's one of those it's too early to tell how well that particular platform is going to do. But obviously,
Well,
What do you think?
I read a scathing interview in
Ah,
Variety,
okay.
and the interview or article was saying that a lot of the content felt half baked,
Mm,
meaning, it wasn't fully, episodic feeling, it wasn't fully feature feeling, nor was it fully mobile feeling,
hmm,
So the way it works is you can watch part of it vertically and then you turn your screen it's horizontally and then you get more of the information, you know?
really?
So, yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily built specifically for
Huh.
vertical
Right.
watching,
Right.
nor was it specifically built for horizontal watching. So, you
Wow.
know, yeah, this is the article. I haven't had a chance to because, I had a daughter born, during this whole
Oh yes. By the
coronavirus
way, I should have mentioned that at the
situation.
top of the broadcast. Congratulations, Kevin. There's
Thanks.
a new little Kevinette in the world. She's adorable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you get a chance to
Thanks.
check out Kevin's social media handles, there's some cuteness there.
Yeah, we might post a picture on the website. But yeah, so I've been a little bit busy. I haven't been able to check out. I've downloaded it. I have everything set up to watch Quibi, but I can't comment specifically on that content. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
But so they're having a little bit of and you just mentioned it, and this is without you really knowing specifically about what's going on. But they've had a little bit of issues with people jumping ship.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So
we got
it's
to see, yeah, what's going to happen with that. There's two sides to that coin that you mentioned, which is, you would think during this time that this would be a great time for people to consume that content. But the article did go on to say that this content was built more for busy time. So, you consume this content 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, you're waiting in line somewhere, or, you're on the subway, or, you're just, tooling around doing something. You consume the content because you're too busy to watch
hmm,
other content. And if you, read that review, the review does hearken to that specifically
hmm,
because you have all this time. It
right.
becomes a little bit more challenging just to watch a 10-minute little tidbit when you have more time because of the quarantine and you can watch a longer form thing,
Yeah.
something that you can engage more in.
Hmm.
So I'd be interested to see, and I'm sure that their marketing had as much to do with, you know, when and how this content was to be consumed.
Oh, sure. No,
So,
a lot of valid points there. Like you said, folks have more time to consume. They may not want to rush through an episode in 5 or 8 or 10 minutes. You may be looking for stuff to kind of hold you over longer periods of time, which is why I think these sort of Netflix style limited series have done so well.
yeah,
With 30, 60 minute episodes, and you can go through easily 4, 5, 6 hours of content if you want to.
right.
Definitely one way to pass the time.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah, I
almost like
think
Netflix was built for something like this.
yeah, no, it really was, and like we've said at the top of the podcast, definitely one that has benefited the most. Obviously an unfortunate situation for everyone, but in terms of folks' viewing habits accelerating towards the streaming platform and the streaming wars, Netflix is still by far at the top of that heap.
Yeah, and Amazon. I mean, Amazon definitely has, you know, I think that, and this is, Amazon is a big, big company,
Hmm.
but I've heard numbers like 24 billion in profits,
Wow.
since this thing started, you
Yeah.
know, uh, uh, $4 million an hour, is another number that I've been,
Hmm.
told. So, and I've
Wow.
heard, kind of rumbling around. So, there are, companies that have, come out over this. But that's
Yeah.
not to, this is all tethered with certainly, my heart goes out to people, everyone who has been affected by
Hmm.
this because it's, our industry, I think, um, a lot of people oftentimes don't give the kind of thought
Right.
into what our industry brings in terms of, um, the workflow of it. But this time specifically, the entertainment gives you a release, and it gives you the ability to, um, at least for a brief moment, um, take your mind somewhere else. And
Yeah.
so, there are huge challenges for the film entertainment media industry. But, as we spoke about, there are different areas that have, moved forward and thrived. But it has, this situation has affected every industry. There's almost no industry that has not been affected. And it's affected, so many people around the world.
Hmm.
So, definitely our hearts and prayers go out to everyone that has been affected by this situation. Again, we started talking about this early January, and we've been talking about it, until, we had our little hiatus, and, we'll continue to check back in, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. No, definitely. You're very well said, Kevin. Thank you for that. But yeah, we'll check in, especially now that I finally figured out this amazing app called Stage 10, so we could do these live Facebook
right.
interviews.
Yes.
So yeah, Stage 10, you're doing a great job, and we are looking for sponsors. So if you want to upgrade us, feel free to do
That's right. Yeah,
it.
we can do that. We can do
Yeah,
that.
for
You did
sure.
mention one last thing. One of my favorite filmmakers, Roger Corman.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Roger Corman. We've been having a lot of fun with that. So he was. There's a few now, but he was one of the first to issue a challenge on social media. The what he calls the first and hopefully last Roger Corman Quarantine Film Festival, where he was he put out a call for submissions, I guess, for 2 minute films made in your home with only an iPhone and whatever props and friends and or family you have around you at the time. And so he definitely put us in a little box. Made everybody creative. I went ahead and made one with my family called the water bottle that I posted
Okay.
on, so you guys can check that out. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, a lot of folks are making those movies and submitting them. And I think today was the last day, ironically, of that festival under the Corman Challenge. And then he's going to pick a winner, and there's going to be all sorts of social media hoopla about it. But yeah, folks in our industry are still staying creative. And some might say because we're so boxed in, we might have to be more creative than ever before. So who knows where
Yeah.
where all this is going to take us? But I think we'll touch more on this next time. Hollywood has to start thinking about the comeback and how we're going to come back from everything from development to production through distribution, because the game is going to change very quickly now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
So, we have some exciting guests lined up. We're still, figuring out logistics. So, we're tossing up, who we're going to have for next week, but I can guarantee you it's going to be an incredible guest.
Right.
So, we're happy to be back. Expect when we come back next week an amazing, amazing guest. Like I said, we have a backlog of people that we've wanted to interview
Yeah.
and, deserve, to have this
Right.
moment. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
Screen Heat is back. I'm Kevin Sharpley,
JL Martinez.
and thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Stay safe. And until then, like I always say, happy streaming.
There you go. Boom.
Later.